I'm a virtuous woman. Can you handle me?
Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful, thought-provoking essay by Dr. Mettabel. It's an explainer that takes a look at one of the most famous scriptural passages about womanhood, and, it pretty much flips centuries of belief completely on their head. So, Dr. Mettabel kicks her piece off with this incredibly provocative statement. Right away, it sets up this central tension she's going to explore, this huge and often really painful gap between what men say they want in a woman and what they can actually handle. And this leads her right to what she calls a painful paradox. She points out that men are so often drawn to a woman's strength, to her fire, her independence. But then, once they're in a relationship, that exact same strength that was so attractive, well, it starts to feel threatening. And what happens then? An attempt to control it. But look, this isn't just some abstract theory for Dr. Mettabel. Not at all. Her entire exploration here is actually grounded in a deeply personal and pretty wounding experience from her own life. She really sets the scene for us. It was a moment in a past relationship. After a pretty minor disagreement, her significant other said something to her that, and I'm quoting her here, still stuns and appalls me to this day. I mean, can you even imagine hearing that? The very things he claimed to love the most about her were also the things he hated. It's just a devastatingly confusing thing to say, almost designed to break down what it once claimed to build up. So what were these things he supposedly hated? Her independence, her spirit, her absolute refusal to just shrink down and make herself small. Basically, the very core of who she was somehow both the thing he loved and the thing he resented. That's a wound, she writes, that took a really long time to heal. But that painful moment, it actually launched Dr. Mettabel on a journey. It pushed her to question all of the traditional kind of meek teachings she'd heard her whole life, and it sent her straight to the scriptures to find out for herself what they actually had to say about being a virtuous woman. And this brings her to the absolute heart of her research. We've all heard that phrase, right? A virtuous woman. But what is that word virtuous? What does it actually mean in its original language and its original context? Dr. Mettabel decided to really dig in. And boom, here it is, the discovery that changes everything. The original Hebrew word that gets translated as virtuous is hayil. And just look at its definition: strength, might, efficiency, wealth, army. This has nothing to do with being meek. This is about power. I mean, the contrast this creates is just so stark. On one side, you've got the common teaching of a quiet, submissive, almost invisible woman. And on the other, you have the child truth, a woman of strength, ability, and force. I mean, they're polar opposites. Dr. Mettabel sums it up with this absolutely unforgettable phrase. A virtuous, or chayil, woman is essentially a one-woman military-level army. That same word, chayil, is used in other parts of the scripture to describe warriors and armies, actual forces that can change the fate of nations. And as she points out, this isn't some radical new idea. It's actually getting back to the original design. In Genesis, woman wasn't created to be a servant, but an ezer kenegdo, a term that means a corresponding strength, a counterpart perfectly suited to stand right alongside man. Okay, so we have the wound, right? And we have the discovery of chayil. But the essay builds to an even more stunning revelation, and it all hinges on a question that, honestly, almost nobody ever asks. Who actually wrote Proverbs 31? I mean, we read it, we quote it, but who was the author? The answer to that question completely reframes the entire passage. Well, the text itself gives us the answer, right there in the first verse. These are the words a king, named Lemuel, was taught by his mother. This famous passage on womanhood was written by a woman for her son. And here it is, the climax of the whole essay. Dr. Mettabel explains that a lot of scholars in Jewish tradition believe that King Lemuel is just another name for King Solomon. And if that's true, then the author of Proverbs 31 was Bathsheba. Just let that sink in for a minute. Bathsheba, a woman whose name is forever linked with scandal and trauma. She was summoned and taken by a powerful king. She suffered the unimaginable loss of her child, but she didn't just fade away. She survived. She rose to become queen, and she advised her son Solomon, the wisest king who ever lived. And this brings us right to the emotional heart of the essay. As Dr. Mettabel so powerfully writes, this means the most famous passage on virtuous womanhood wasn't written from some pedestal of perfection. It was written from the ashes of a real, painful, lived experience by a woman who knew exactly what happens when powerful men mishandle women. So this just reframes everything. Proverbs 31 was never meant to be a checklist for women to measure up to. It was a warning from a mother to her powerful son, the king, teaching him how to recognize and honor and cherish a woman of valor, a Chayil woman, and not destroy her. So with this totally new understanding, Dr. Mettabel brings the whole thing right into the present. What does this revelation actually mean for us today, for both men and for women? Let's just reread this famous verse through Bathsheba's eyes, with her wisdom in mind. Who can find her? The question isn't who can tame her or who can shrink her down. It's a question of discovery, of recognizing something incredibly rare and priceless. And this leads to Dr. Mettabel's final point to men. A Chehil woman isn't a threat to a man's greatness. She's the source of it. The man in Proverbs 31 is respected at the city gates because he has this force of nature by his side, not in spite of her. He trusts her strength. He doesn't try to cut it down. Which brings us all the way back to the title of Dr. Mettabel's essay. She poses the question directly, not just to men, but to a culture that has misunderstood this for so long. And then she answers it herself. Yes, you can. And for your own sake, I hope you do. And she closes with this final, empowering charge. It's a message that just resonates so deeply. And if you are her, please do not let anyone shrink you.